Hey guys, what's going on? Funky Music here with another video for you guys. Today we're gonna be talking about stat comparisons. I get a lot of questions about this. Funky, why are we using this set? Why this set? Some people don't have any, or some people have some real big issues with this. So let's go ahead and go over why what I'm wearing is best in slot. Obviously, Trauma. I actually went and tested this mace the other day. It is still not working. I've had a lot of people come to my stream saying it is working. It is not doing the healing that it needs to do. That is update number 1, big one. It should be doing like 200 to 300,000 healing, and it's not even doing close to that. I tested it in a 25 ICC, Professor Putricide, Festergut. It's not doing anything. It's maybe doing 70,000, and it should be doing a lot more than that. So do not buy into the heroic trauma working. It is not working. It is broken. Still to this day. I do have a bug tracker up for it. I will maybe try to remember to put it in the description in this video, so you guys can vote that up. But I do know that speaking to some of the staff here, they said that they were working on it and testing it right now. So let's hope they get that fixed. That's been broken for a long time. It's a healer's best in slot. A lot of the healers best in slots, and it's currently just utterly useless on Resto Druid, and it's the best weapon in the game for Resto Druid, because raw healing, actual healing done, beats absorbs. Absorbs are guessed at. They've always been guessed at. Scata just guesses at the absorbs. If you plant a shield for 3,000 but the person only gets hit for 2,700, it still counts it as 3,000. I mean, it still counts an extra 300. It doesn't, like, whenever the bubble breaks, it counts it as a full amount. So Zorbs are always guessed at. So yeah, when you see people putting up crazy numbers with Valinar, which I do have, it's not as good as what it seems, because the absorbs are guessed, but it is still better. Don't get me wrong. Valinar is still has its uses. It is still good for you. It's still, the healing that it does is pretty amazing still, even with the guest absorbs. When I think a couple guys actually went and tested the actual absorbs on it, it was still good in retail. It's still great here. So don't underestimate the legendary mace. That's not putting it down at all, but people really overestimate the power of a disc priest on this server, when they're only really needed for one fight, because absorbs really mean nothing. Absorbs are not gonna, if you're at 50% health, a shield is not gonna heal you to full max health, especially if you have a bleed on you, or let's say you, a disc priest is healing the raid on Infest for heroic Lich King. The only way Infest gets cleared is if you're at what is it, 90% HP. You have to be above 90% or at 100% to clean out the Infest. Well, they can only cover so much of the raid, so they're only effective to a certain point. So let's say you have Infest on you and it's ticking, priest cast shield on you. That's not going to do nothing. That's not going to save you. You need actual healing done, which is why every other healing class is so important. I mean, disc is good for that fight and that fight only because of the mitigation it provides, because you don't have to deal with all Infest all across the entire board. It's the only reason why disc priests are good in Icecrown Citadel. They're good for one fight. Don't let anyone fool you. They're absorbs. They're junk. It's junk. It's guessed. They do no actual real healing, which is needed for almost every other boss in Icecrown Citadel. So moving along, that's problem number 1 with trauma. Let's go ahead and go to. I got a question the other day on my YouTube channel about Funky. Why aren't you using the Halion bracers, the phase shifters bracers, and the boots from where is Icecrown Citadel? Why aren't you using the ones from Gunship, Funky? What's up with that? You know? Okay, well, let's go ahead and add this up. If you take what I'm currently wearing, okay, and I'll bring it next to here, you can see the boots of a natural growth. They give you 223 more armor, 74 spirit, 16 critical strike rating, but you lose 90 haste. Keep an eye on that. That 90 haste loss is very important. This is why I do not use the boots of a natural growth. Let's go ahead and go to the other one he was mentioning. You know, why don't you use these two instead of the other two? Okay, let's go ahead and go to the Ruby Sanctum if I can find the stupid thing. Phase shifters bracers, okay? Phase shifters braces of eternal dreaming. The only thing that's better on them is they have 68 spirit, okay? Phase shifter bracers are better than everything, and they give you 65 haste. But if you noticed, it's only 65 haste. The boots that I'm currently wearing, these right here, the Plague Scientist boots, okay, give you 90 haste. So you're actually losing 25 haste by swapping to them. This is why haste is so important. You need to get as much haste as possible from your gear before you gem it. You don't want to gem for haste. It's going to be a loss in spell power. You should want to gem for spell power and spell power only, as much as you possibly can, without having to gem for spirit or gem for haste. Okay, you don't want to do that at all. So the more haste you can get from gear, is the more sockets you can throw into your spell power, and much more healing done. So that's very important. That's why I don't use that setup. Yes, the stats are better almost across the board, except in the one point where you need it the most, and it's haste. You want to get that haste from your gear. So, I mean, and you look, and if you add it up, I did add these both up. So if you take what he was saying versus my 2 pieces of gear that I'm wearing, it's only a gain. Get this, it's only a gain of 29 crit rating. If you add in the bracers and the boots versus my bracers and boots, it's a gain of 29 crit, 223 armor, which zippy do. You actually lose 25 haste. You gain 6 spirit and 8 spell power. It's not worth losing 25 haste to gain 8 spell power, 6 spirit, and 29 crit rating. It's just not. There's no way around it. There's nothing that's better than what I'm currently wearing. And you want to get as close as possible to that haste cap as you possibly can. Now, I am, granted, 856, I'm over by 7 haste, but I'm at the haste cap. If I took away 10, I would be 2 points below the haste cap. People, oh, does it really matter that much? Is it really that big of a deal? Yes, it really is. Is it 2 points of haste really going to hurt me? Probably not. But if I was to go up against another Resto Druid who was haste cap and let's say just as skilled, eventually, because my rejuve would be at like a 1.03 cast time, okay, and his would be at a 1 second. Eventually, over the course of a fight, he will get more rejuves out than I will. So that's why it's very important to have haste cap. Okay, so that's why I chose that. Got another question. Funky, why the legendary, the staff from Lich King is so much better than Trauma, and it's better than what you're using? No, the mace or the staff from Lich King. Let's go ahead and pull that up. Let's go ahead and go to Lich King. It is Archis, great staff of whatever the name is. I always screw it up. Okay, let's look at that right now. And let's go ahead and compare it to what I have. Okay. This is what I have. Now, granted, it's a little bit different, obviously, but when you add both of these things together, when you add my Sundial and my Valinar together, first of all, Valinar is better because of the proc. Hands down, it's going to beat Archis. Okay? But when you add in the haste rating, let's see, Sundial has 68 haste, and the Legendary has 49. Okay? So, you add, let's say, 50 and, 70 minus 3... That's 120. That's 113 haste, right? So, wait a minute. I'm going to have to do this. Hang on. I'm going to do the math real quick. I'm doing this kind of on the fly. I don't have it wrote down. But, yeah, anyways, Archis is not going to be better than the Legendary just because of the simply because of the proc. Okay? But let me go ahead and show you why his argument was that Royal Scepter was not as good as Archis. Well, Royal Scepter is as good with Sundial. Now let's go ahead and add these up. If you have the Royal Scepter, you're talking 71 haste plus the 68 from your offhand, okay? That's 139 haste. Archis gives you 141. 2 haste points. 2. That's it. That's the only difference. And the guy he went on to say, "Well, Funky, you're gonna get spirit." Okay, yes, you will get spirit. Okay, we'll add that up in a minute. You also get 2 extra socket bonuses. Okay, well let's look at what you get with the Royal Scepter. Your increases spell power by 893, same as Archis, but when you go and look at Sundial, it increases it another. If you add Sundial in, you're talking an additional 119 spell power, right? Archis and Royal Scepter cancel each other out because they have the same exact spell power. But the offhand from Sundial has an additional 119 spell power. Okay, so even with your two, I mean, because Royal Scepter does have a socket, okay? So let's minus one socket from Arches, so you're getting 2 extra sockets, okay? The most gem you could put in there is a 23 spell power. That's the highest one, okay? So 23 plus 23 is 46. 46 minus 119, okay, which would be the difference between those two. Let's go ahead and add that up. So you have 119 minus 46, and you're still getting a gain of 73 spell power by using the main hand and the offhand over the staff. 73 spell power that's a huge chunk of spell power, okay? People want to nitpick at 2 and 3 spell power. Okay, that's for the elitist jerks like me who want to try to maximize we try to squeeze out every little inch of spell power we can. But 73 is a huge, significant number. You can't ignore the difference there. Now, well, what about the spirit from Arches, Funky? Okay, let's add that in, right? Because the Scepter has no spirit, and let's remember, 15% of spirit is converted into spell power. But let's not forget the Sundial does have spirit on it, so we have to minus 68 spirit from Sundial from Arches' 141. Okay, so let's go ahead and do the math on that. You have 141 minus the 68 from Sundial. It gives you 73 extra spirit from Arches. Okay, now let's times that by 15%, and we get 10.95 spell power. Okay, let's minus that from the 73. Oops. Well, 10.95, right? 10.95 minus 73. Okay. So it's still a gain. Even when you add in the spirit, it's still a gain of 62.05 spell power from using the main hand and the offhand over Arches. That's why Arches is your third best in slot weapon, behind Valinar, behind Royal Scepter, then Arches. And when Trauma does get fixed, Trauma will actually trump all of those and move way up there. So that's why Arches, people buy it, I understand, because it's the same coins as buying the Royal Scepter because it's a one hand. Then you have to go get the offhand. So I understand why people buy Arches, but I see way too many people who are best in slot, who are in top tier guilds, who are in really, really good guilds, who have access to these weapons and they choose not to get them. It's just ridiculous. There's no reason not to get them. The stats are so much better on the main hand and offhand than they are with just Arches. So Druids, remember that. It's very important.